Hello everybody, it's me, Ghost Bunny, and today I'm going to be reading Heaven Angel's Blessing. It's in a book that I read, not intentionally, it's just life itself, so yeah. Also, let's just say, my computer is, well, in another world, far beyond our reach. It will be missed. Rip my laptop. Forever in our hearts. F in the chats for my laptop. So I'm gonna be recording on my phone. So yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna do my reactions. Pero yeah, whatever. I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna be doing those reactions because my laptop is, and I'm not really comfortable showing my face, and I'm pretty sure my phone's not gonna be able to handle a full VTube character. So yeah, maybe I'll go back to just regular PNG and just go with that because yeah, I don't have money for a new laptop unless somebody wants to. No, I'm not. I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna be a choosy beggar. But yeah, no. Just please, while I save up to buy myself a new laptop, just you know, be nice to me, please. Just, just phone and a little mic. Yeah. Pero yeah. I'm gonna be reading Habit of Vicious Blessing. Like I said, it's been a while since I read it. Pero hopefully you guys are still, excited, I think. But yeah. I don't know why I felt the need to explain myself or justify anything. But whatever. Let me just start reading. Let me start because I know I'm just gonna start yapping about whatever. But let me just first get my regular disclaimers, and that is that one, I have no affiliations with 7Cs or with MXCX or any of the sorts. There are official audiobooks you can find on the internet. This is not one of them. This is just me reading for the funsies of reading, me doing a little yap session for the sake of just, having someone to read with and just, for funsies. Also, I do not speak Chinese, Mandarin, any of the sorts. So I will mispronounce a lot of the names, not on purpose or in an attempt to make a mockery of the language, but it's just because I am a little dum dum who does not speak the language. And thinking about speaking the language, even though I do speak English, that does not mean that my reading will be super fluent or like professional, because I'm a native Spanish speaker and there's going to be some words that I do not necessarily know how to properly pronounce it, and other times I just get tongue tied. So yeah, this is just for funsies and just, us gal pals just reading some good old gays, homosexual, Chinese boys. So let's go. That being said, this is chapter 6. Clothes redder than maple, skin white as snow. So, a la one, a la two, a la 1, 2, 3. Of course, those were words he would never say out loud. Oh wait, I should have done it previously on, but do I really remember what happened last time? Oh yeah, they were were we? Oh yeah, I remember. We were in the meeting the first time we hear the words, and he's like, but he's so hot and sexy. What do you mean he's evil? It's evil. If it's really evil, why is he so like hot and sexy? Even though I don't think you actually seen him, you just saw his hands. He saw those hands, and he was like, enough. Say less. But yeah, that's the previously on. Now to the sword. of those, of those, of course, those were words he would never say out loud. But no wonder Nanfeng and Fu Yao's face changed when they heard about the silver butterflies. They must have had a hard time at the hands of the silver butterflies' master, together with the two generals they served. Your Highness, did Hua Chen do anything to you? An official asked, as if Xie Lian should be missing an arm or a leg or whatever. He didn't really do anything, just... Xie Lian stopped, at a loss for words. Just what? He couldn't possibly say that Hua Chen just hijacked his sedan, held his hand, and strolled with him in the woods. Like, you can't, but like... It's complicated. Stumped for a moment, Xie Lian finally said, he broke Xuanji's enchanted array at Mount Yujun and took me inside. The heavenly officials all grumbled inwardly, but remained in uneasy silence. After a while, an official finally asked, what do you think of all of this? From the voice alone, Xie Lian could imagine how the various officials could as they shook. Well, they looked as they shook their heads and shrugged. Who knows? Completely no idea. No one knows what he wants. How scary! What on earth is he thinking? No one can read that Hua Cheng. Although Hua Cheng had been big ubiquitous. He has been known as the devil incarnate. Xie Lian did not think he was scary. He thought he was hot. He saw those hands and said, "Say less." And all things considered, Xie Lian had Hua Cheng to thank for his help in the northern case this time around. Either way, his first mission after Ascension was complete. And to be fair, it's been more than a week and he is still a god, so honestly, high five around. Yes, we've done it. Hooray, we need a festival, a banquet. Too early? It was predetermined that all the merits from the northern case would be counted under Xie Lian's name, but that old lord official was so overwhelmed with grief over the death of his daughter that he didn't actually remember to fulfill his promise of, the prayers until much later. You old bitch. And the merits were discounted because he did not mournfully. You bitch. Yet somehow, with a little bit of here, and a little bit there, and a lot of oversight everywhere. Yeah, but yet somehow, with a little bit, Xie Lian was finally able to repay most of the 8,808,000 merits. Xie Lian was at last debt-free, feeling light with the weight off his shoulders. He's like, happy day. Happy and high-spirited, Xie Lian decided that he'd now focus on being a good god, and it would be great if he could become acquaintance or friends with the other heavenly officials. Maybe, one of these assholes has to be a decent god. Please? I'm begging you. Even though the upper court communication array was generally peaceful, it would turn boisterous once things got busy. Sometimes, if an official was feeling good or had encouraged something interesting, they'd share in the array, and there'd be merits. Merits for you, merits for her, merits for everybody. Although Xie Lian didn't recognize most of the voices, because honestly, no one gives a fuck. He would listen silently, but he couldn't always remain invisible because, well, sometimes being an icon is just so overwhelming. It's not my fault. I'm too iconic. Is what he says to himself, by the way. That's not written here, but I can steal it. Where was I? Oh yeah. After a while, he'd randomly join the conversation. That really is quite interesting. Damn, you live like this? I read this pleasant verse in passing and thought I'd share it with everybody. It goes, snitches get stitches. And if any of you hoes gets in my way, I will stabbeth the you. Something Mark Twain or whatever. Here's an effective little cure for back and leg pains. Thought I'd share with everyone. This is also a tea for in case someone decides that talking behind my back is a good idea. It may slightly be poisonous, only for those who have spoken ill about me in the last 24 minutes. I'm looking at you, that random god, I forgot his name. Haya. All of these were said, not in the book, but yours truly. Guess which ones were actually written in the book? Aha, a little quiz for you. Do your homework. Virtually every time he'd share these mindful, selected physically and mentally beneficial tips, the communication array would go silent. He'd be like, hey guys, have you considered hydrating water? Everyone's like, you. I'll drink Red Bull until I die. Finally, Ling Wen couldn't take it anymore and told him privately, Your Highness, what you're sharing in the communication array is it's nice. Look, I get it. Like it's sweet, it's nice, it's lovely. Oh my god, that's so precious, uwu. But like, honey, how do I tell you this in the nicest, cutest, ootiest, uwuest way possible? Those who are 100 years older than you wouldn't share those kind of things. So basically, you old bitch grandpa, stop posting the live, laugh, and love every microsecond. Oh, what a good day to wake up with the sunrise. It's so beautiful to see you, my good one, as it signs and something something poetry that reminds me of you. Love, your grandfather, who has not spoken to you in like 6 months, but is going to tell you something randomly because he remembered you exist. Love, Grandpa. Well, love, Xie Lian. Xie Lian felt a little depressed. He wasn't even that old, just older than everybody else. So how did he end up becoming the senior among the heavenly officials? How am I the boomer? That's why I was being a millennial. I feel old. I mean, I'm a Gen Zer. Yes. Something. I don't know what Gen Zer says. Give me toilet's alpha, right? Give it to toilet's alpha, right? I know words. My Xie Lian. But yeah. Who couldn't keep up with the trends? The trend topics of the youngsters? He couldn't keep up. He doesn't know what a skibidi toilet is. Neither do I, and I'm too scared to ask. Probably because he'd been away for too long and always lived a solitary life without a care for the outside world. Alas, it couldn't be helped, so whatever. He gave up and became less depressed. He's like, you know what? I might not know what a checks notes Sigma male is, but I know how to copy and paste. Honestly, I'm very modern. But there was another problem. There were still no new shrines built for him in the mortal realm. Maybe there were but the heavens hadn't found them. Come on, guys, just look under that rock. It's probably there. So there weren't any records. Even old lords of the ground and soil had shrines. As a formally ascended official, one of the 3 times at that, having neither shrine nor temple nor followers was pretty awkward. But as awkward as it was only other heavenly officials feeling awkward for him. So Lian personally thought it wasn't that bad. And one day, on a whim, he suddenly thought, if no one worships me, I'll worship myself. Have a self-esteem. Love yourself. We love that for Xie Lian. He is a promoter of self-love, of self-value. Make your own shrines. Be the worshiper you need as a god. Be your own god. Be independent. This is a self-help book. I'm going to hashtag this as self-help. Everybody else is going to be like, no, it's not. For your own mental health, don't read this. But I am saying the opposite because I believe in Xie Lian and his power of self-motivation. None of the heavenly officials knew how to respond to that. Who had ever fucking heard of a god worshipping himself? Because you guys don't have a high enough self-esteem. I don't know, get with the programming. To reach such tragic heights, what was the point? However, Xie Lian, a self-loving #queen, was used to receiving nothing but awkward silence the moment he spoke, and thought amusing himself could be fun. Once he made up his mind, he jumped back down to the mortal realm. This time, he landed in a small village in the mountain. It was known as Puchi. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. Named for the water chestnut. Is it Puchi? Pookie? Oh my god, I said Pookie Mountain. Oh my god, Pookie. I'll just say Puchi. Rather than a village, it was more like a hillside hamlet with green trees and clear waters. It was pleasant country landscapes with continuous stretches of rice paddies with such beautiful scenery. Xie Lian thought he landed in a really good place this time. He's like, well, finally, not a shit show. Huzzah! I mean. When he looked further, he saw there was a small, dilapidated shack on a hill, and upon asking around, the villagers told him that house is decrepit. There's no owner, and vagrants sleep at night in there every once in a while, so you can, make it yourself. Just take it. Like, no one cares. It's literally this. It's an eyesore, but if you want, you can just keep it. Like, no one's gonna fight you for that. Well, wasn't that just perfect for him? Xie Lian walked towards the shack. As Xie Lian walked closer, he realized that the shack looked, decrepit from afar, but up close inspection, it was literally crumbling. Like, it was decrepit? No. It was barely a shack. It barely legally qualified as a room. 2 of the 4 columns had held up the rectangle-shaped shack were probably rotten through. When the wind blew, the entire shack would shake and creak, possibly ready to collapse at any time, but it was still with Xie Lian's range of acceptance. Basically, it existed, so it was Xie Lian's approved shack. It got the Xie Lian stamp of approval because it was a real tangible thing, and it wasn't. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. You understand me? Do you? You know? Well, he went in for a look and began to tidy up the place. The villagers were quite surprised to see that someone actually going to settle in the shack, and all came to check Xie Lian out. They gave Xie Lian a huge warm welcome. Not only did they donate a broom to help with the cleaning and watch as he swept until he was covered in dust, they even gave him a basket of freshly picked water chestnuts. With their skin peeled off, the water chestnuts were white and crisp, fresh and juicy. Xie Lian squatted on the doorstep and ate them. He then put his hands together and, feeling thankful for the blessing, he decided to call this place Puchi Shrine. Puchi Shrine already had a table inside that could be used as the altar. After, a couple of wipe downs, Xie Lian busied himself with cleaning this and that, and the onlooking villagers soon realized that this young man was building a shrine of sorts. Curiosity overtook them, and they questioned him. They didn't shut the fuck up. They were nosy. Chismosos. They literally have nothing going on for them. There's nothing going on in this village. Literally, you could just fall, and that would just be like the most tragic accident this village has ever seen. They have not had any amount of entertainment. You are the entertainment. Please entertain us. Like, Xie Lian could have just walked in there and said, "Hi, hello. I am just going to hit a stick on a stick." And that would make headlines, baby. Make headlines. So yeah. Which god are you going to worship? Asked random villager number who knows what. Xie Lian cleared his throat and said, "Yes, this shrine will be for the Prince of Xiangle." Everyone's face were like, eh? I meant went blank. Who that? Xie Lian replied, I don't know either. He's a prince, I think. Oh, the fuck does he do? Probably watches over you and keeps you safe. While collecting scraps in passing, the villagers asked excitedly, "Then does this prince oversee the blessings of wealth?" Look, I'd already be pretty good if you don't get blessed into debt, Xie Lian thought to himself and gently replied, "I'm afraid not." The crowd started throwing suggestions at him. Why not worship the water master for wealth? It will bring in good money for the temple. What about Ling Wen Zhenjun? Then maybe our village will produce a scholar. A girl shyly offered, what about, what about, no. Xie Lian maintained his mouth. The fuck you smiling about? About what? Finish your sentence. I'm gonna throw you out of my goddamn temple if you don't hurry up and tell me. You're so lucky I don't have guards. General Zhu Yang. If Xie Lian really built a Zhu Yang shrine, Feng Qin would probably shoot him dead on the spot with an arrow. He'll invent guns just to shoot him again. After roughly tidying his shrine and shooing everyone the fuck away, all that was left, was Xie Lian. Well, all that Xie Lian was needed were an incense burner, some fortune shakers, and other miscellaneous stuff. But Xie Lian forgot the most important thing: the statue of a god. How will people know who to worship if they can't see his sexy, hot abs? Worshipping just the thought of a god and not the image of a sexy, hot, chiseled abs, beautiful, pretty boy face, and fat ass? Not my god. He carried his bamboo hat on his back and stepped onto the door. I mean, out the door, not onto it. Out. It was probably on the floor, but whatever. Oh yeah, there was no door, so fuck it. I knew it was on the floor. He pondered for a moment. This shack definitely had to be repaired, and so Xie Lian wrote and put a sign out front. Please kindly donate to the renovations of this broken shrine for the accumulation of good merits. And I don't know how that's gonna help you in the human realm, but hopefully, um, they're cumulative, and you could take them to heaven and tell one of the other gods that, hey guys, I have 3 merit points because I gave Xie Lian a pencil. I know. Stop it. I'm so strong and brave for that. Xie Lian walked. Well, he left. He walked for 3 or 4 kilometers and entered town. To do what? Well, to get a life, of course. So he went to do what he did best. In fairy tales, gods didn't need to eat. But in truth, it was hard to say. The Almighty could certainly extract and absorb the necessary spiritual energy directly from sunshine and rain dew, but the problem here was that it wasn't a matter of ability, but rather, why the would you? Some gods, due to their cultivation methods, required clean internal organs and could not touch even a drop of mortal grease, icky human shit. If they were to ingest mortal sustenance, it would be as if they had been struck with food poisoning, and they would immediately get diarrhea and fucking die on the spot. Thus, they would only ingest cleanly grown spiritual fruits or magical beasts that had life prolonging and power strengthening effects. Xie Lian didn't have any of those problems because, like, honestly, why would he not eat chicken? Like, fuck, it's good. Like, what's wrong with you? So he was like, the fuck, I'm gonna. Why would I torture myself? Hand over the thigh. So that's exactly what he did. With the cursed collar on, he was no different than a mortal. He could eat anything, and through experience, nothing he ate could kill him either. So even if it was poison, bad, what? Oh, you're telling me just because it's filled with mold, I can't just consume it? Hand over that moldy bread. It's extra vitamins, I think. The protein from the maggots will probably have flavor. It's flavor. Keep it there. Words by Xie Lian, and only Xie Lian would say something like that. But yeah. Even if it was a bun that had been set aside for over a month, or a cake that had gone moldy, like I said, I gave the good example. Why am I still reading? But whatever, even if it had been set for a month, or a cake, yeah, I'm reading this again. He would eat it all without harm. With such a body, he could pretty much get by just collecting scraps. To compare them, building a shrine costed money, while collecting scraps made him money. So ultimately, truly collecting scraps was better than ascension. Honestly, who needs ascension when you have scrap collecting? Mm, mm, mm. Think about it. Xie Lian had the looks and grace of a saint. So he had the upper hand with collecting scraps, and it took him almost no time to collect a giant bag. On the way back, he saw an old ox cart that was piled high with hay. The cart looked like one he'd seen before in Puchi village, so it should be going the same way, maybe. He asked for a ride, and the cart driver tilted his chin to signal for him to just get on, just get on. I know you. I saw you. You're the weirdo with the bamboo hat. Carrying his big bundle of junk, Xie Lian climbed on to take a seat. It was only when he settled down that he realized there was someone else lying on the other side of the tall stack of hay. This person, whose upper body was hidden behind the hay, had his left leg crossed over his right. It appeared that he was lying there with his arms pillowed behind his head, taking a rest. He looked so carefree and at ease that it made Shen Liang a little envious. That tight pair of black boots on a pair of long legs, with a slide pleasing to the eye, and it reminded Xie Lian of a different pair of that walked with him at Mount Yujun. He's like, I recognize those tall legs. Tall, skinny, lanky legs. Somehow alluring and highly sensual. Nah, it couldn't be him, he thought to himself. But like, daddy long legs? Hmm, hmm, hmm. I lost my place. Yeah. Xie Lian could not help but sneak several more looks to confirm that there was no silver chains on those boots, which seemed to be made of animal pelt. This is probably a young master coming out to play, he thought. The cart shook as it drove languidly. Xie Lian pushed back his bamboo hat and took out a scroll to read. He didn't really care for worldly affairs, but after, having created too many awkward situations, he figured, what, let me just study a little bit. The cart rattled and passed time. Looking up, they were traversing a maple grove, a sea of flaming red in a field of green, the rustic charm of the mountainous countryside with fresh grass and that refreshed the mind was extremely intoxicating, but she didn't, could not help but be slightly taken aback. It was a beautiful sight, by the way. I've seen pictures. It's beautiful. A long time ago, in his youth, when he cultivated at the Royal Holy Temple, the entire mountain of maple was like this, shimmering like gold, intense like fire. The unforgettable sight before him now inevitably took him on a trip down memory lane. Xie Lian watched for a long time before looking down on the scroll. The first few lines on the scroll were thus. The Princess Xie Lian ascended 3 times. Let me just read this right. The Princess Xie Lian ascended thrice as a martial god, a misfortune god, and a rubbish god. Assholes. Who said you could put that on the paper? Well, alright, Xie Lian said out loud. If you think about it, a martial god is no different than a rubbish god. All gods are equal. All beings are in fact equal. Equal rights, said Xie Lian. A snicker came from behind him. A voice said, Is that right? The youth on the other side of the cart lazily continued in a drawl. He would naturally love saying that all gods are equal and all beings are equal, but if that were true, then pretty much all those different gods wouldn't exist. She then looked at the boy, who was still lying there idly, without showing any intention of getting up. He had likely interrupted out of boredom. You're probably right, Xie Lian said and smiled. Then he returned to his scroll and continued reading. Further down the line read, Many believe that, as the god of misfortune, any paintings or writings of the Princess Xie Lian have the power of a curse. If placed on the back of a person or on the main entrance of a household, then the cursed person or household will run into all sorts of bad luck. Moo ha ha ha. It was hard to tell whether this was a description of a god or a ghost. Or both. So Lian shook his head. He couldn't bear to read any more about himself. It was probably better to read about maybe some, other prominent gods of today, so he wouldn't be discouraged or on the verge of jumping off a cliff. But, keeping up with the times, old man trying to be with the hippity-hoppity youth, because people still say hippity-hoppity. So, if he ran into them and ended up, not being able to tell them apart, he probably looked less awkward. A villager had mentioned that the water master earlier, so she then moved to find the description of the water master. The water master, voodoo, controls water and simultaneously wealth, but merchants have a war. Jesus Christ, I can't read. The water master voodoo controls water and simultaneously wealth. Most merchants have a water master shrine in their stores and home to guarantee their wealth. Xie Lian thought this was strange. Why would a god of water control wealth? The youth behind the hay responded. When merchants transport goods, their cargo is mainly sent on the waterways, so they always go to the Watermaster temple and light up a tall incense to pray for a safe journey, promising this or that when they return. And after a while, the Watermaster gradually came to control wealth. The youth was actually answering his questions, especially for him. Xie Lian turned around. Really? Interesting. The Watermaster must be a very powerful major god then. The youth sneered. Yeah, he's the water tyrant after all. Judging by tone, Xie Lian didn't think the boy took that particularly heavenly official all that serious. It didn't sound like he was complimenting him either. It was, What's the water tyrant? The youth replied leisurely. When a ship travels down a major river, it all depends on him whether the ship can set sail. No offerings means capsizing. Yeah, pretty tyrannical. So that's how he received the nickname, kind of like General Zhu Yang and the Sweeping General. Famous gods usually had a nickname or two between all the realms. For example, Xie Lian was known as the laughingstock of the three realms, the infamous freak, the jinx, the loser, etc. Usually, it was fairly disrespectful to use those nicknames on heavenly officials, like if anyone were to call Mu Qing the sweeping general, he'd surely fly into a rage and beat you, ironically enough, with a broom. Xie Lian made a note to himself on what not to call the water master, and Xie Lian said, I see. Thank you so much for enlightening me. He paused briefly, and thinking this youth to be rather intriguing conversationalist, he continued, My friend, you look young, but you know a lot. Hmm? Ooh, we have a pretty picture. I'm gonna take a nice little photo so you guys can see what I'm seeing. But let me just read here on the side, and I'm gonna talk about the picture in a moment. Okay. The youth replied, Nah, just bored. I read whatever, when I'm free, that's all. In the mortal realm, it was easy to find books on lore that spoke of the stories of gods and ghosts, the subjects ranging from their kindness and grudginess to tribulations. They're them bitching and moaning. Yeah. Some were real and some were fake. It wasn't odd that the youth knew so much because what the fuck are they gonna do? Do you know what time period we're in? They still haven't invented TikTok, and meaning they still have an attention span, unlike me. Xie Lian put down his scroll. Then, my friend, you know about gods, but do you know about ghosts too? Which ghost? The youth asked. Xie Lian replied, Crimson Red Saltflower, Hua Cheng. The youth chuckled and finally sat up. Then Jesus Christ, I can't read. The youth chuckled and finally sat up when he heard that name. He turned around and Xie Lian's eyes suddenly lit up. The youth was about 16 or 17 years old. His tunic was redder than maple leaves, and his skin was white like snow. With eyes as bright as stars, he looked askance. He looked at him with a smile. He was exceptionally handsome, but there was an inexplicable hint of wildness in his look. His hair was tied in a loose ponytail, crooked and carefree. The cart driving through the forest of flaming red maples where maple leaves danced their way to the ground. A leaf playfully landed on the shoulder of the youth, and he blew it off softly, then looked up at Xie Lian, who, speaking with a shadow of a smile, What do you want to know? Ask away. He looked teasing, yet somehow possessing the perfect composure of omniscience. Though he sounded youthful, his voice was deeper than was typical for his age, and was pleasant to the ear. Sitting upright on the cart, Xie Lian watched him thoughtfully for a moment, then said, Crimson Red Sunflower evokes quite the imagery. Do you know where it came from, my friend? And now let's look at the photo. It's really pretty. Like, how can I say this is beautiful without saying, like, it's beautiful so many times? Because, the pose, the relaxation. I'm just gonna put it there. Like, look at it. What can I see? This is the first time they've officially met in the book. Him in his little sunlang form. I love him. Like, míralo, it's so precious. I love him so much. They look so cute. On to the next page. Out of respect, Xie Lian didn't say my little friend, because that would be rude. He was like my friend, mi compay. The youth sat up casually, propped an arm on a raised knee, and fixed his sleeves. He replied, unconcerned. Nothing major, really. Just that there was once an incident where he cleaned out the nest of another ghost, and a shower of blood ran. Jesus Christ, I can't read. Nothing major really, just that there was once an incident where he cleaned out the nest of another ghost, and a shower of blood rain poured down from the skies. He saw a flower was getting battered by the bloody rain, so he tilted his umbrella and shielded. Xie Lian pictured in his head, imagining such an act of elegance under the rancid showers. He then thought about the burning of those 33 temples and laughed. Does Him pick fights often? The youth answered, not often, okay, depends on his mood. What was he like before his death? Xie Lian asked. Definitely not a good person, that youth replied. What does he look like? The youth raised his eyes to look at him when he heard the question, tilted his head, and stood up before sitting down next to Xie Lian. What do you think he looks like? He turned the question, on Xie Lian. Answer me. It's my turn. My turn to ask questions. Seeing the youth up close, Xie Lian thought he would too. He was too handsome for words, but his beauty was deadly like a sword, sharp and mesmerizing, making it hard to stare head on. Xie Lian only met his eyes for a moment, then lowered his eyes in defeat. He turned his head slightly and continued to ask, if Hua Cheng is a big shot ghost, I'm sure he has many forms and changes often. The youth arched his eyebrows at Xie Lian, turning away and replied, yeah, but there are still times when he would, use his real face. Of course, we're talking about his true form. It might have been his imagination, but Xie Lian thought the distance between the two of them seemed a little wide, so he turned his face back around. Then I feel his true form is probably a youth, like you. The youth lifted his lips slightly. What? Why did you say that? So they replied, no reason. You say whatever, and I think whatever. Everything is whatever. That's all. The youth laughed. Who knows? But he's blind in one eye. He pointed on his right eye. This one. That was nothing outrageous. Xie Lian recalled one of the many backstory versions where Hua Cheng wore a black eye patch to hide his missing eye, and asked, do you know what happened to his eye? That's a question everyone's answered, though. The youth replied. Others asked because, they wanted to know what Hua Cheng's weakness was, but Xie Lian asked purely out of curiosity. He didn't say anything, and the youth continued. He dug it out himself. Xie Lian was taken aback. Why? Oh, bit of madness, the youth answered. He could dig out his own eye when struck with madness? Xie Lian was now more curious than ever about the Crimson Ghost King. It couldn't have been something as simple as a moment of madness, but there was probably no more details in that story. So Lian pressed on. Does Hua Cheng have any kind of weakness? He wasn't expecting the youth to have the answer. It was just a casual question. If Hua Cheng's weakness was so easily known, then whatever the rumored question was couldn't possibly be true. But the youth answered immediately. His ashes. Yeah? If one got a hold of a ghost's ashes, one could take command of said ghost. If the ghost disobeyed, then by getting rid of the ashes, the ghost would dissolve, and its soul disintegrates. This was common knowledge, but using it on Hua Cheng seemed fruitless. Xie Lian smiled. Xie Lian smiled. There's probably no one who can obtain his ashes, so that weakness is the same as having no weakness. You never know, the youth said. There are circumstances where a ghost would voluntarily give away his ashes. Okay, like the bed he had with those 33 heavenly officials? Yeah, right, exactly. He didn't need to say the words for Xie Lian to understand that he meant there was no way Hua Cheng would have a loss. He continued, there is a custom, in the ghost realm where if a ghost has a special someone, they entrust their ashes to that person. That was akin of handing over one's life to another person. Such passion. What a charming tale that would be. But Xie Lian commented interested. Xie Lian commented interested. I didn't know the ghost realm had such a romantic practice. They do, the youth said, but not many dare to practice it. Xie Lian thought as much. It wasn't only ghosts who deceived humans. There were humans who deceived ghosts too. There must be endless tales of manipulation and betrayal. Xie Lian sighed. It certainly is painful to think about it. to have given everything for love and lose everything in return. The youth laughed out loud. What's there to be afraid of? If it were me, I'd have no regrets giving my ashes. Who cares if they want me to disintegrate, or just scatter the ashes for fun? Xie Lian grinned, then suddenly realized that they still didn't know each other's names despite having chatted for so long. My friend, what's your name? The youth raised one hand over his forehead to block out the rays of the blood-red sunset and squinted his eyes as if loathing the sun. Fuck you, son. Me? Well, I'm the third in my family. They call me Sanlang. He didn't say his full name, and it wasn't Xie Lian's place to ask. My family name is Xie. Given name is Lian. Are you heading to Puchi village too? Sanlang lay back into the hay, put his arms behind his head, and crossed his legs. Don't know. I have no destination in mind. It sounded as if it were. It sounded Jesus. It sounded as if there was a story to his words. So Xie Lian gently asked, "What's the matter?" Sanlang sighed. My parents were quarreling and kicked me out. They were quarreling and kicked me out. I walked for a long time, but had nowhere to go. I almost passed out from hunger on the streets before finding somewhere at random to lie down. The clothes on the boy's body looked casual, but the material was of high quality. With the knowledgeable way he spoke and how carefree he appeared, Xie Lian had long since thought this boy was from a wealthy family. It must be quite difficult for a respectable young man to wander so long on his own. Xie Lian understood that feeling. Hearing he was hungry, Xie Lian searched through his sack, but only found a small steamed bun. Good thing it hadn't turned hard yet. Want it? The youth nodded, and Xie Lian gave him the bun. Sanlan took Xie Lian. Jesus, I can't read. Sanlan took a look at Xie Lian. What about you? Am I right? I'm not even hungry. So it growls. It does that sometimes. By the way, here's a little note about Sanlang's name. So, Sanlang means third youth. It is common for peasants to name their children in numbers, while those of higher status would use the same name conventions for familiar nicknames. Lang means man, but also becomes a term of endearment when attached to a name. It is used by a woman to address their husband or lovers, akin to a dear. So it's basically like you're calling your son first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, because you can't think of a name and you're too poor to have an education. Mi hijo, segundo. Sanlang pushed the bun back. Then, all right too. Xie Lian looked at him, then split the bun in half and gave him half. You can have half, and I'll have the other half. Seeing this, Sanlang accepted the steamed bun and started munching. Watching him sit and eat a simple bun obediently, Xie Lian felt that like he was abusing the boy. Damn. The ox cart drove slowly over the rugged hills as the sun gradually set, and the two chatted in the back. The more they spoke, the more Xie Lian thought Sanlang to be an extraordinary youth. At such a young age, his diction and behavior were already mature, probably more mature than mine, and intelligent, more than me. Calm and collected, as if there was nothing in this world he didn't know, and nothing could stump him. Xie Lian thought he was wise. He was wise beyond his years, but sometimes he would still reveal the folly of youth. Xie Lian said he was the shrine master of Puchi Shrine, and Sanlang asked, Puchi Shrine? Sounds like there are plenty of water chestnut seeds. I like them. Which god is it for? Having been asked that troublesome question again and again and again, Xie Lian cleared his throat and said, It's the Prince of Shanle. You probably don't know him, but please, don't point and laugh. Please. The youth smiled, but before he could say anything, the ox cart suddenly shook violently. The two jerked with the cart, and Xie Lian reached to grab Sanlang, fearing he might fall. Thank you. You guys can tell I'm in Puerto Rico because you can hear the announcements. Or maybe not. Hopefully the answer is not. But going back to my reading. Where was I? Oh yeah. The youth smiled, but before he could say anything, the ox cart suddenly shook violently. The two jerked with the cart, and Xie Lian reached to grab Sanlan, fearing he might fall. But just when his hand touched Sanlan, the youth shook his hand as if it burned. There was only a slight change in his expression, but Xie Lian saw it and thought maybe this boy actually disliked him. He doesn't like me. I thought we were besties. He hates me. They had such a good time chatting all this way, though, hadn't they? But now, wasn't it time to ponder? Although he did cry a little bit. Xie Lian stood up and looked around. What's going on? The old driver responded, I don't know. Old Huang, why aren't you moving? Go on now. The sun had set, and the ox cart was still in the deep woods, now filled with darkness. Old Huang, the ox, just stood there, stubbornly refusing to move no matter how the old driver urged it. It kept mooing, wanting to dig its head into the earth and flicking its tail like a whip. This didn't feel right. Xie Lian was about to jump off the cart when suddenly the old driver pointed straight ahead and screamed. Farther up the road, a number of hovering balls of green flames were popping up. Here and there they gathered and burned, floating through the woods. A group of white-clad figures slowly made their way towards them, carrying their own severed heads. Oh, trigger warning, I guess. Seeing this, Xie Lian cried, Protect! Roye flew out from his leaf and wrapped itself in a circle around the ox cart from above, protecting the three plus the one beast. Xie Lian turned back and demanded, What day is it today? The old driver didn't respond before the youth spoke up from behind. I'm so sorry for them. Zhongyuan, the middle of the 7th month, when the gates to the underworld opened. He didn't check his calendar before coming out today. Do you even have a calendar? I did not know that. And it just happened to be Songyuan Festival. Again, I'm so sorry for that mispronunciation. Xie Lian's voice dropped. Stay close to me. We've run into evil tonight. If we go down the wrong path at the fork, we'll never return. The figures were dressed in white prisoner garb and had no heads. It appeared they were newly executed criminals, and every one of them held a head in their hand. They wobbled slowly towards the ox cart, and their heads buzzed in those bony arms. Xie Lian instructed the other two on the cart in a low voice. In a moment, when they approach, do not make a sound. Sanlan tilted his head. Gege, I can't believe you're a man with superpowers. He sounded greatly interested, and Xie Lian replied, Not really superpowers. I only know a few tricks. They can't see us now, but it's hard to say whether they will when they get close. The old cart's driver's eyes were already wide with fear after seeing the flight of the silk cloth, and now that there were headless walkers, his eyes were about to roll back in terror. He shook his head repeatedly. No, I don't think I can hold my voice in. Daozhang, what should I do? Then, there's another way. I apologize in advance. Xie Lian swiftly swung his hand and tapped a point on the old man's back, and instantly the man slumped and passed out. Xie Lian caught him lightly, and laid him down flat on the ox cart, while he himself assumed the driver's seat. Suddenly, he sensed a strange movement behind him, and when he turned back to look, he saw that youth had followed after him and settled right behind him. Xie Lian asked, Are you all right? Sanlan propped up his chin. Of course not. I'm scared. Although there wasn't a single trace of fright, detectable in his voice, Xie Lian still comforted him. Don't be scared. You're behind me. Nothing will harm you. The youth smiled, not saying a word. I totally love the idea of suddenly being like, "No, I'm so scared. Save me. Oh my gosh, strong, hot, powerful Gaga. I'm such a innocent uwu baby. I can't protect myself. Please, Gaga, look at me. I'm shaking with fear. I'm shaking in my boots. Save me." You know, that type of fish. Yeah. I can see right through you, Sunlight. See right through you. I know what you are. You can't trick me. The youth smiled, not saying a word. Xie Lian suddenly realized the youth was staring at him. Then, quickly, it dawned on him that what this youth was staring at was actually the cursed shackle around his neck. You know, this cursed shackle was like a black collar bound to his neck, completely unconcealable. It could easily cause one to assume the worst. Julian pulled out his collar lightly, even though it couldn't hide anything. He was like, "Please cover something. I'm scaring the boys." The skies had darkened, and the youth's expression could no longer be seen. Julian picked up the reins to gently urge the ox onwards. The group of ghosts in criminal garb walked over, wanting to pass, but they kept sensing that there was something blocking the middle of the road. So they all cursed up and down. "What the hell's going on? Why can't we pass?" "Yeah, what the hell is this haunted?" Like, dude, that's scary. Fucking hell, we're the ones doing the haunting, all right. Look at me, oogly boogly boo. The f you on? Like we're the ghosts, dude. We're the ghosty boys. Chicka chicka choo. Xie Lian finally soothed the ox, and the cart silently passed by the band of headless criminal ghosts. Listening to the head's banter, Xie Lian thought them rather hilarious. They were full of petty woes. Did you make a mistake? How come it feels like the one holding your head is my body? You're the one whose body grabbed the wrong head. Excuse you? You cunt? Hurry up and switch back then, you guys. How come the cut around your neck ain't clean? Huh? The executioner was a newbie. It took him like 5 or 6 tries before he managed to chop my head off. Made me think he did it on purpose. Okay, I may have done horrendous crimes, but he didn't have to be petty about it. Like, that's so rude. Your family probably didn't tip him well enough. Next time, don't forget to pay the guy, and he'll give you one clean chop. Like, come on, if you're gonna do a crime, at least pay the person that's gonna kill you. Sheesh, you cheap men. There's no next time. The 15th day of the 7th month was the Xie Lian Festival, the biggest festival for the ghost realm. On that day, the gates of the underworld opened, and all manners of spirits, ghosts, monsters, and demons swarmed out to celebrate with abandon. That's what it says. Mortals needed to avoid them at all costs. But what do you mean next time, you fuck? Especially on the night like this. It was best to stay home with, every door and window shut. But Xie Lian, he was not like the other girlies. He was Xie Lian. He had always had rotten luck, to be fair. It wasn't that he was special, unique, and unlike the other girlies, because he was God's least favorite sim. Like yours truly. He could drink only water, and the water would get stuck between his teeth, and he could be wearing wholly repellent gear when ghosts would appear like it was like what was happening right now. Ghost fires flared all around them, and several were chasing after the fires, and some dressed in funeral garb were expressionlessly mumbling to themselves in front of the circle, trying to cash the offerings and Joss paper money burned, with the word pandemonium. So Lian crossed through the middle, thinking that from now on he must pay more attention to the calendar when going out. Yeah, I wasn't aware you had a calendar. So, wow, technology, I guess. Suddenly, a screech that sounded like a chicken being butchered rang out. "Oh no! Oh no! Ghosts are being murdered!" The fuck? Wait, how are ghosts being murdered? You're already dead. The ghost that screeched answered. Wait, sorry, I skipped. Oh no, ghosts are being murdered! This scream made all the ghosts anxious. What? Where? Wait, where are they murdering ghosts? The ghost that screeched answered. I'm scared out of my wits. I found so many shattered ghost fires over there, and they were all like brutally crushed. What a silly! All of them? All shattered? Then they're truly broken beyond saving? That really is too much. Who did it? Could it be? Have you been influ- Have we been Have we been bamboozled by monks and cultivators? That band of headless people started shouting, "Ah! Now that you mention it, weren't we just blocked by something on the road? No way of passing? Could that have been? What? Like where, dude? Point. Okay, but like right over there, like like there. Like don't look, but like look, but like look, but like don't look, but like look at it. It's like right over there. I'm not pointing because I'm holding my head, but like look, but like don't look. Don't make it obvious. Like slightly move your head, not your body. You fucking idiot. Like slightly, like when you just like nudge, you know. No, not like that. Like it's right there. It's right there. Xie Lian cried, "Oh no!" mentally. The next second, a large group of nefarious beings surrounded the ox carts, each of their faces savage. Oh my god, don't you know I'm a savage? I'm a killer. They threatened maliciously. I smell the steaming scent of the living. They couldn't hide any longer. It was already unreasonable for a live human to crash into a band of ghosts on Zhongzhuang Festival. As if Xie Lian actually wanted to fight such a large mob of creatures, he urged the cart onward and shouted, "Go!" The ox was terrified and was already stomping its hooves anxiously while it stood. Once it heard the shout, it didn't need to be ordered twice before it pulled the cart into a mad dash. Xie Lian didn't forget to grab at the youth sitting behind him. "Sit tight!" He withdrew Roye and conveniently whipped out the path to escape. An ox cart suddenly revealed itself amidst a circle of ghosts, fires, and dashed out the siege. Those green-faced, teeth-baring, missing-limb ghosts screeched behind the cart. "There really is a cultivator! Damn cultivators, tired of living! A live human actually dared to crash our Songjuang gathering? Okay, you can't blame us for anything. Get them!" Xie Lian was gripping onto the reins with one hand as his other hand fumbled out a large handful of paper talismans and threw them to the ground. "Hinder!" Those were stumbling talismans, excellent tools for escape. A series of small rumbling noises could be heard. With every rumble, an obstacle was set with a band of ghosts. It would stall them for like a short time, but only for a short time. Despite using up so many talismans, it wouldn't even be half an instant's time before they caught up. Xie Lian was driving the cart down the next page, down the mountain path in a escape. Like his rear was on fire when he suddenly called out, "Stop!" Turns out the old ox had pulled the cart to a fork in the road. Xie Lian saw there were two pitch-black mountain paths ahead and immediately pulled on the reins. Now he had to be extra careful. On the night of Zhongzhuang Festival, sometimes when people strolled, they might discover a road that had never existed before. Such a road should never be taken because if they walked the wrong one, they would enter the ghost realm and never return. Xie Lian had only just arrived in the area and didn't know which path was the right one to take. Then he remembered that beside the large bag of junk he collected, he also purchased some miscellaneous items, including a fortune shaker. So he thought, why not shake out a fortune to the side? Thus, he fumbled for a fortune shaker and shook it in his hand. With a clattering sound, mumbled as he shook, by the heaven official's blessing, no paths are bound. The great road leads to heaven, one to each side. May we go our separate ways. The first stick left, the second stick right. We'll take the path with the best fortune. Just as the words left his lips, clack, clack, two sticks fell out of the shaker, but when he picked them up and looked, he fell silent. The worst of bad lucks. Both sides were the worst of bad luck. Both roads were perilous, so didn't that mean they were going to die no matter what? Xie Lian felt a little exasperated and shook the shaker furiously once more time with both hands. Dear fortune shaker, this is our first meeting. Why are you so heartless? I'm going to try again. Please let me save face this time, or I will literally burn you. Click, clack, clack, click. Two sticks again, and when he picked them up, they were both still the worst of bad lucks, and they told him to go get bent. Let me try. Silent spoke suddenly. It couldn't go any worse, to be frank. Than his anyway. So Xie Lian passed the fortune shaker over. San Lang received it with a single hand. He's like, give it to me. And casually gave it a shake. Shake, 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 senora. Give a little shake. San Lang received it with, I read that. Out fell two fortune sticks, and he picked them up and handed them to Xie Lian. Without even so much as a glance, Xie Lian gave them a look, and they were both amazingly the best of luck. He couldn't help but be odd. Since he first reached such a state of misery, it seemed that oftentimes those around him would also have their fortunes affected by his crummy luck. Who knew it was if that was actually true? But either way, it was a complaint he'd shake. He heard it frequently. He's heard his entire life that people were like, damn, just being near you gives me bad luck. Get away from me, you unlucky freak. But maybe they were just equally as unlucky as him, because look at this. Mm-hmm. Since both fortune sticks showed the best of luck, Xie Lian picked the path randomly and drove the cart as he praised sincerely. My friend, your luck is really, really good. San Lang casually tossed the fortune shaker in the bag and smiled. Really? I think my luck is pretty good too. It's always been so. Xie Lian, having heard him say, it's always been so, wanted to fucking throw the kid off the goddamn cart. He's like, you know what? Get off my cart. Fuck you. How dare you have good luck? Get off my fucking cart. Xie Lian thought that the difference between people truly was as great as heaven and earth. After running for a while, wails and hollers could suddenly be heard from all around. Got him! He's here! Everyone, come here! That damn cultivator's here! Ghost, head after ghost, head popped out. Xie Lian spoke up. I can't believe we still picked the wrong goddamn path. The effect of the stumbling talismans was over. They were still surrounded after all. There was at least 100 in this mob of nefarious beings, surrounding them in a wave after wave, and the numbers were still increasing. Xie Lian really didn't know why there were so many inhuman creatures gathered here, but there wasn't any time for wonder. Xie Lian said warmly, it wasn't my intention to disturb everyone. I pray you will show us mercy. A headless ghost spoke. Stinking cultivator. Why didn't you show mercy first? Puto. The one who broke and disrespected a bunch of ghost fires over there was you, wasn't it? You killed them. They were innocent. Okay, well, they weren't that innocent. They killed a lot of people, and one of them was a little child. A little predator. But they were innocent ghosts. He was not innocent alive, but as a ghost, maybe. You detectives first! Taylor replied innocently. Look. It's a misunderstanding. It wasn't us. Truth be told, I am but a lowly scrap collector. Don't you dare try to argue. What kind of scrap collector looks like you? You clearly a cultivator. And besides, you, the cultivator, who here could do such a cool thing? It doesn't take a cultivator to break in this beer's ghost fires, Xie Lian reasoned. Then who could it be? Ghost? Likely story. Xie Lian quietly tucked his hands into his sleeves. That's not impossible. Yeah, that's nice. This is funny, dude. Damn cultivator. Fuck you. You you really you pull that shit on me? You tee hee ha ha your way through this? Fuck you, I guess. The men of ghosts who were roaring with mockery suddenly stopped in their tracks. Xie Lian wondered aloud, okay, but what about me? The fuck? He might have asked a question, but they weren't just stopped in their tracks now. They all stared at Xie Lian as if they were seeing something exceedingly terrifying. Their mouths were either gaping open or shut tight, and a number of their heads, held in the felon's hand, were even dropped onto the ground. Xie Lian ventured again. Everyone, are you like okay? I was gonna say mentally, but some of you guys lost your head. Literally. No pun intended, but like, sheesh. Yet, unexpectedly, before he finished his question, the band of ghosts all fled the scene, like the wind blowing away remnants of clouds. Xie Lian was baffled. What the what? Huh? Eh? Eh? He hadn't even taken out the bundle of talismans he clutched in his hand, inside his sleeve yet, and he was found out? Huh? Were they really that sharp? Damn. Maybe the lack of head just gave him actual brain cells. What the fuck? And they weren't even particularly powerful talismans either. Xie Lian felt incredulous. Was it really him they saw? Were they hallucinating? Excusez-moi? Pardon my French, but what the fuck? Or something behind him. Having thought this, he turned his head back and looked behind him. But there was only the passed out ox cart owner and that carefree red-clad youth, who was still propping up his cheek. Seeing him look over, San Lang smiled and dropped his hand. Taosan, you're amazing! You scared all those creepy, evil ghosts away! It was all you and nothing else. Nobody else. Obviously, it was clearly you, and anybody who says the opposite is a fucking liar. You were such a brave, strong man. Oh my god. I was terrified. It was all you and definitely nobody else. Obviously. My hero, baby. Xie Lian smiled back. Really? I didn't realize that was actually this amazing. Okay. Job well done, me? Yay. Then he pulled at the reins a couple of times, and the wheels of the ox cart began to roll slowly. Once more, the road after that was smooth, and it wasn't even an hour before the ox cart slowly pulled out of the forest and came to an open mountain path. Down below the hills, the warm glow of lights illuminated Puchi village. That really was the path of the best of luck, with a close call but no actual danger. A night breeze brushed by, and Xie Lian turned his head back once more. San Lan seemed to be in a very good mood and had lain down, watching the moon with his hands pillowed behind his head. Beneath the faint moonlight, the youth's complexion looked surreal. After a moment of hesitation, Xie Lian smiled. My friend. What is it? Daddy? Have you ever had your fortune told? Xie Lian asked. No, San Lan replied, turning to face Xie Lian. Do you want me to give you a session? San Lan looked at him and smiled. Do you want to give me a session? A little bit, Xie Lian said. San Lan gave a slight nod. Sure. He sat up, his body leaning slightly towards Xie Lian. How do you want to read my fortune? How about a palm reading? Xie Lian suggested. Hearing this, the corners of Sun Ling's lips curled. It was hard to tell what the smile meant, but he only replied with, "Sure." Then he extended his left hand to Xie Lian. This left hand was long and shapely, clean and elegant, and beautiful. It was a beautiful hand. Hey, Xie Lian, do you have a hand fetish? I know Sergeant Kita, who also has a hand fetish. But yeah, it wasn't a soft and meek kind of beauty, rather than what strength. It was strengthened, hidden beneath the muscles. It was a hand that one wouldn't want to have choking their throat. Why was that a thought that came to your head, Xie Lian? He has a hand and choking king, confirmed. Xie Lian was careful not to touch Sanlan due to the slight change in the later expression, last time where he thought he didn't like him. So he suddenly looked down to study the hand up close. The moon above was bright, but not too bright. Even in the midst of night, it wasn't too dark. Xie Lian thoroughly scrutinized the hand before him as the ox cart languidly climbed the hills. The wheels and the wooden shaft creaked as they rolled. So, what does it say? Xie Lian took his time, then slowly said, "You got a good hand." "Oh, yeah. How so?" Xie Lian raised his head and said warmly, "You have a strong character, extremely stubborn, but whenever you run into obstacles, you remain true to yourself and manage to transform the bad to good. You have a limitless well of good fortune, my friend. Your future is bright and full of success." All of that was complete bullshit, made up on the spot. Xie Lian had never learned palmistry. He doesn't know what the f he's saying. He'd just be saying shit. Once upon a time, when he was still, banished, he often regretted not learning palmistry or, face readings for, the state preceptors of the royal holy temple. If he had such skills, then earning pennies on the streets wouldn't have been so hard, and he wouldn't have to, busk or shatter boulders on his chest. What he really wanted to see wasn't the fortune of the youth, but rather whether his hand had fingerprints and palm prints. Normal ghosts and monsters could fabricate fake bodies and present to be human, but their craft was rough and overlooked minute details such as fingerprints and palm prints. However, the body of the youth appeared altogether normal, with clear palm prints. There was no sign of magical undulation around him. If he was a ghost in disguise, then he had to be of a caliber greater than a wrath to create such a flawless disguise. But why would a ghost king of such special status spend his time traveling with Xie Lian of all people on an ox cart, to visit Pucci village? Eh? That doesn't make sense. Just as heavenly officials were always busy working like machines, ghost kings have their hands full too, right? Yeah, they're probably busy. He doesn't have time to do this, said Xie Lian. Xie Lian pretended to be conflicted in this fortune-telling, and sweated through his bold-faced lies until he couldn't come up with anything else. Sanlan watched him unblinkingly the whole time, staring through his nonsense with an intrigued smile, chuckling underneath his breath. "Got any more? Sanlan asked. "No, wait, what more did he want, Xie Lian? To make up? Is there something special? Something else you want me to look? Huh? Don't fortune tellers always talk about love and marriage?" Sanlan asked. Xie Lian cleared his throat and replied solemnly, "To be honest, I'm actually not that great at fortune telling, so I don't know how to predict relationships, but I don't imagine you having anything to worry about." Sanlan arched his brows. "Why do you say that?" "¿Qué? Sí. Sanlan arched his brows. "Why do you say that?" Xie Lian grinned. "There must be tons of girls with crushes on you." "And why do you suppose so many girls must like me?" Someone asked. Yeah, why girls, why not men? Xie Lian was about to go with the flow and answer before he realized that this kid was manipulating him into praising him. You sneaky, sneaky little fox. Helpless and amused, Xie Lian didn't know what to say and rubbed his forehead. San Lang. This was the first time Xie Lian ever called San Lang by name, and the youth laughed in delight, letting Xie Lian off the hook. The ox cart had finally laboriously pulled into the village, and Xie Lian turned around and hurriedly got off the cart, with his hand lightly supporting his forehead. San Lan followed behind and jumped off. Xie Lian finally looked up and realized that San Lan was actually a head taller than him. Fuck. It wasn't obvious when the youth was lazily lying in the hay, but standing tall, the two couldn't see eye to eye on even ground. San Lang stood before the cart and stretched, and Xie Lian asked, San Lang, where will you go now? I don't know. Maybe sleep on the streets or a cave will do. You know. San Lang sighed. That won't do, Xie Lian concerned. San Lang shrugged. Can't be helped. I have no place to go. Then he grinned. Thanks for telling me my future. I mean my fortune. I'll rely on your good words. See you later, alligator. Xie Lian sweated in embarrassment in the mention of his fortune-telling. Seeing that the youth turned to leave, he quickly called after him, Wait! Why don't you come to my shrine, if you don't mind? San Lang stopped in his track and turned halfway around. Is that okay? Xie Lian explained, That place wasn't originally mine anyway, and I heard it housed a number of passerbys before, but it's probably much shabbier than what you're used to, so, I'm afraid you wouldn't be comfortable. If this youth really was a runaway young master, Xie Lian couldn't possibly let him run around the streets aimlessly. He strongly suspected that half a steamed bun was the only thing San Lang had eaten all day, and youth or not, he would collapse somewhere if he kept that up. Hearing Xie Lian, San Lang turned fully around and said nothing, but walked up close to Xie Lian and leaned forward. Xie Lian didn't understand what he was up to, only that the distance between them had closed too fast. He suddenly didn't know what to do. Then the youth straightened back up, lifted the giant bag of junk Xie Lian had brought back in his hand. He said, Okay, let's go. Xie Lian blinked on the spot. He watched as the tall and slender youth walked away with the giant bag of junk as if it were the most natural thing in the world to do, and it made him mutter inwardly, Forgive my sins. San Lang strode a few steps out and started walking. Xie Lian was about to follow him, but he remembered at the last second that the old driver was still asleep in the ox cart, so he went back. Around and he went back and woke up the old man, advising him to keep the incident tonight a secret. After witnessing his powers, the old man didn't dare to say no and hurriedly dragged his old Huang home. Only his rolled-up straw mat was left on the cart. Xie Lian hoisted it onto his back, turned around and saw that San Lang had already started climbing the hill toward Puchi Shrine with his bag of random scraps. Nearing the crooked, shaky shack that was Puchi Shrine, San Lang lowered his head and puffed out a laugh, as if seeing something amusing. Xie Lian approached, saw that he was looking at the sign requesting donations, and cleared his throat. As you see, that's why I said you might not be comfortable here. It's not too bad, San Lang lied to himself. In the past, it had always been Xie Lian who told others, It's alright, it's not that bad. Hearing it from someone else for the first time gave him complicated feelings. The Pucci shrine door was, it gone. It was on the floor. It's rotten long ago. So Xie Lian had torn it down and replaced it with some curtains. He lifted the drapes and invited, Come in. And San Lang entered the shrine with him. There wasn't much in the small shrine, only a long altar table, two small stools, a small cushion, and a donation box. Xie Lian reached for the bag in San Lang's hand, took out the fortune shaker, incense burner, and some paper and miscellaneous stationery, and placed them on the altar table. Then he lit a used red candle someone had and placed them on. Okay. Then he lit a used red candle someone had stuffed into his hand while he was collecting scraps, and the shrine brightened instantly. San Lan picked up the fortune shaker playfully, gave it a shake, and then put it down. So, is there a bed? Xie Lian silently took the straw mat from his back and unrolled it to show him. San Lan quirked a brow. There's only one. Xie Lian only met the youth on his way back from town, so of course he didn't think he needed to buy another one. If you don't mind, we can squeeze a bit for the night. That works. San Lang agreed way too fast. Xie Lian then reached for the broom and swept the floor while San Lang looked around some more. Dao Zhang Gege. Wait. Dao Zhang Gege. Gege. Caesar can't read. Dao Zhang Gege. Aren't you missing something in the shrine? Xie Lian had just finished sweeping and was kneeling on the ground, laying out the mat when he heard him. He answered as he patted their bed. Other than followers, I don't think there's anything missing. San Lang crouched down, a hand propping up his chin. What about a divine statue of the god? His words reminded Xie Lian. How did he forget the most important thing in a shrine? God's statue. We already went through this. How could they praise someone they don't even simp? Not my God. A shrine without its idol is no shrine. Although one could say that God himself was present, he couldn't possibly just sit up and at the altar every day on every hour. Come on, his legs would hurt. Xie Lian contemplated for a moment and came up with a solution. I bought some paper and ink today. I'll paint a portrait tomorrow. Painting a portrait of himself to be hung in the shrine he built for himself to praise himself. If the heavenly realm caught up wind with this, they'd probably laugh at him for another 10 years, centuries, lifetimes. Self-love, baby. But the cost of commissioning a sculpture was rather hefty, and it took him to so Xie Lian would rather be laughed at for 10 years and save the money. Unexpectedly, Silence spoke up. A portrait? I know how to paint one. Need my help? Startled, Xie Lian smiled. Thanks, but I'm afraid you don't know how to paint. Well, at least how to paint the Prince of Xianle. Am I right? After all, most of his portraits had been burned and destroyed 800 years ago. No matter how many were left now, not many people would have seen them before. Sunlight replied, Of course I do. Weren't we talking about him early on the cart? Xie Lian remembered the conversation. That was indeed the case. Earlier he had said, You probably don't know him, but San Lang did not respond. Hearing him speak now, Xie Lian was amazed. He finished with the bedding and sat up straight. San Lang, don't tell me you really do know him. San Lang sat down on the mat and replied, I do. The expression and tone of voice of this youth, when he spoke, were both very interesting. He was always smiling, but one could never tell whether his smile were genuine or if he was actually mocking the other party for being too slow to keep up with the conversation. Having listened to him chat on the way back, Xie Lian was rather interested in San Lang's appraisal of him. Xie Lian moved to sit next to him and asked, So, what do you think about the Prince of Xianle? Both men looked at each other under the lamp. The flame of the red candle flickered slightly. San Lang had his back to the candlelight, and it was hard to see his exact expression with his eyes immersed in shadow. After a moment, he replied, I think Yun Wu must really dislike him. Xie Lian wasn't expecting this answer and was taken aback. Why? Why do you think that? Why else would he have banished the prince Twice, San Lang replied. San Lang replied. Xie Lian smiled a little and thought, indeed, the thinking of a child. He lowered his head and slowly removed his belt. I don't think it has anything to do with likes or dislikes. There are many things in this world that can't be explained that way. Xie Lian turned around, removed his white boots, and continued. Besides, no one needs to be punished for making mistakes. The Heavenly Emperor was simply doing his duty both times. Perhaps, Sunlight responded, it responded. Xie Lian took off his outer jacket, folded it, and was ready to place it on the altar table. Wanting to say more, he turned around only to see Sunlight's eyes staring at his feet. It was hard to describe that gaze. It was icy, but searing, scorching, but with a hint of chill. Xie Lian looked down and immediately understood. Oh, his right ankle was a black cursed shackle. The first curse was firmly locked around his neck, and the second was tightly fettered around his ankle. Both curses were placed in areas not easily concealed. In the past, if anyone asked, Xie Lian would just lie and say they were from training purposes. But Sanlang probably wouldn't be so easily, fooled. However, Sanlang only stared at his ankle for a while without saying anything. So Xie Lian lay down on the mat, not worrying over the issue anymore. The youth also obediently lay down next to him, but he didn't remove a single article of clothing. Xie Lian figured Sanlang was probably not used to sleeping on the floor like this, and thought perhaps he should find a way to get a bed after all. Let's rest. Xie Lian softly blew out the candle, and all became dark once more. The literal next day. Ta-dum! Early next morning, when Xie Lian opened his eyes, Sanlang wasn't next to him. He looked up and stopped, stunned. On top of the altar there hung a portrait. It was a portrait of a man with a gold mask, dressed glamorously in extravagant attires. There was a sword in one hand, a flower in the other. It was a beautifully and vivid painting portrait of the God-pleasing prince of Xianle. It had been years since Xie Lian saw such a painting, and he stared at it stunned for a long time before getting up. He got dressed, then pulled back the curtain. Sanlang was just outside, hiding in the shadows alongside the shrine, twirling the broom in his hand and watching the sky with a bored expression. It seemed this youth really didn't like sunlight. The way he was watching the sky looked as if he wanted to pluck the sun and stomp it into pieces. All of the fallen leaves around the shrine had been swept into a pile next to the entrance. Xie Lian went out the door and asked, "Did you sleep well last night?" Sanlang was still leaning against the wall, but turned his head and said, "Not bad." Xie Lian walked over, took the broom. Jesus Christ. Xie Lian walked over, took the broom from his hand, and asked, "Sanlang, did you paint that portrait in the shrine?" Sanlang replied, "It's really well done," Xie Lian praised. Sanglang's lips lifted, but he didn't say anything. Maybe it was because he'd slept all over the palace last night, but his ponytail this morning seemed to be even more crooked, loose and casual. It actually looked quite nice. Casual but not messy, rather playful. Xie Lian pointed at his own hair and asked, "Want me to help you with that?" Sanlang nodded and headed back inside with Xie Lian. When Sanlang sat down, Xie Lian held down his black hair and quietly started examining it. Even if the palm prints and fingerprints were perfectly detailed, ghosts always had one flaw in their body creation. Their hair of a living the hair of a living person was uncountable, and it came in individual strands that were intricate and distant. The fake bodies created by ghosts had their hair that was either a black blur or a pasted mass like long strips of fabric. Sometimes they just went for the bald look because it was easier. Xie Lian had checked his palm prints and fingerprints that night before, and he had already lowered his guard. But seeing the portrait this morning raised his suspicions again. How would an ordinary person know how to paint this portrait? Yet, When he combed his fingers gently through Sunling's hair, Xie Lian couldn't find anything amiss. After a while, Sunling let out a laugh as if he was ticklish from the touch. He turned his head slightly and looked at him out of the corner of his eye. He said, "Gaga, are you helping me tie? Gaga, 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 are you helping tie my hair, or are you thinking of doing something else?" With with his hair down, Sunlan still looked handsome, but there was an added air of wickedness. His question sounded like a tease, and Xie Lian grinned. All right, Xie Lian said, and quickly finished doing Sunling's hair. But after that was done, when Sunlan looked at his own reflection in the bucket of water in the corner, he turned back to Xie Lian with quirked brows. Xie Lian took a look and quietly cleared his throat. The ponytail had been lopsided before. After Xie Lian retied it, it was all crooked. Although Sunlight didn't say anything and merely stared at him, Xie Lian hadn't felt this embarrassed in centuries. He lowered his hands and was just about to suggest they try again, when suddenly there was a commotion outside. Sounds of footfalls approached, and several loud bells rang out. "Great Immortal!" Bewildered Xie Lian ran to the door just in time to see the shrine surrounded by a large crowd, everyone's faces red and excited. The village chief sped ahead toward Xie Lian and grabbed his hand. "Great Immortal! A living god has descended upon our small village. We are so thankful!" Question mark, question mark, question mark, said Xie Lian. The rest of the villagers also followed the chief and surrounded Xie Lian. "Welcome to Puji Village, Great Immortal! Great Immortal, can you bless me with a wife? Great Immortal, can you bless my wife with a child? Great Immortal, we have fresh water chestnuts for you. Will you want water chestnuts after eating? Can you conveniently bless me with a good harvest this year?" The villagers were so enthusiastic and passionate that Xie Lian had to take a few steps back, and he broke into a sweat. It seemed that the old driver from the night before had a big mouth. Xie Lian clearly told him, "Don't fucking tell anybody." When the instant morning arrived, news had already traveled through the entire village because, goddamn it, gossip. Wildfires. The village had no clue what kind of god was worshipped in the Puchi shrine, but still, they all crowded in, wishing to, light incense and the prayer. It didn't matter who it was. God was a god, and prayers do no harm. Xie Lian had initially expected tumbleweeds and crowds at the shrine, and crows. With only a few coming to offer prayers, so he didn't think to prepare a lot of incense. Who knew that with such hubbub, all the incense would be gone in a second? The little incense burner was filled to the brim, and heavy smoke enveloped the shrine. Since Xie Lian had not smelled that incense in a long time, he even choked on it a few times. He said as he coughed, Okay, everyone, this shrine doesn't bless you with wealth, okay? Really, I swear, or good health, because goddamn it, the asthma. Please stop wishing for wealth. The result is unpredictable. I'm sorry, this shrine doesn't bless you with a good marriage either. Stop asking. No pregnancy. Just fuck your wife. Regular old sex can work. Sunlight stopped caring about his sloppy hair and sat next to the donation box, one hand propping up his chin, the other grabbing water chestnuts to eat. Many village girls saw him and blushed. "Oh my god, he's so cute." They turned to Xie Lian. Do you grant? Xie Lian didn't know what they were going to ask, but you know what? He felt instinctively that it must be stopped immediately and cried, "Fucking no! No, I can't get you into his pants. Regular old seduction. Just, I don't know, shake your ass or something. Not gonna do it for you." When the crowd finally dispersed, the altar was filled with fruits and vegetables, even rice and noodles. No matter how this had happened, it was all an abundance of offerings. Xie Lian swept the floor and took out the trash, and Sunling followed him out. "The shrine is doing pretty well." Xie Lian looked. He shook his head and kept sweeping. This was an unexpected turnout. Normally, there shouldn't be more than one or two per passersby a month. How can that be? Xiaoling asked. Xie Lian glanced at him and smiled. This is probably thanks to your good luck. Saying so, he recalled that he wanted to change the door curtains, so they took out a new curtain to drape over the front entrance. He stepped back to look at his work and noticed that San Lang stood still before it. What's wrong? San Lang stared at the curtain thoughtfully. Following his gaze, Xie Lian realized he was looking more at the seal drawn onto the fabric. It was a seal that Xie Lian had drafted in passing before, one that was complex and impossibly well knit. Originally, it was for, warding off evil and shielding from intrusions, but since it was Xie Lian himself who drew it, who knew if it might attract bad luck instead, since there was no door, though it was safer to have a, protection ward just in case. Seeing the boy fixed in place before the curtain with a seal, Xie Lian's mind stirred. He called out, Sanlang? Could it be that the seal had blocked Sanlang out of the door, preventing him from entering the shrine? Dun, dun, dun! Well, that was the end of chapter 6 of Heaven Official Blessing, also known as TGCF, Tiangguan Sifu. But yeah, let me just put my little bookmark in place. Where's my bookmark? Right. Okay. That's all for today. I will continue next time. And yeah, if you guys been liking my readings, you can like, comment, subscribe, and do all the other regular YouTube shenanigans. And well, that's all. Bye bye. Bye 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 bye.